Good afternoon. It's Tuesday, April 23. I'm Herman Green with the Midday News. For those of you watching online at onespotmedia.com, a very special welcome to you. We start with tragic news that a triple murder in Top Belfield, Manchester has left the usually peaceful farming community in mourning and shock. Information is limited at this time, but TVJ News understands that a middle-aged farmer, his common-law wife, and his son were found this morning with gunshot wounds to the head. The man's eldest brother, himself a farmer, says he got the disturbing news as he prepared to head out to his farm this morning.
The police wasn't on scene as yet, so we try to go inside, interfere. And so we stand up on the outside and see one lie down on the floor and two on the bed. The girlfriend face turned to the wall and the brother face turned outside.
One of the persons who died is from the community who was born and raised here. The others are persons who were recently moved to the area, so we are waiting to hear what the police have to say about it. But we are very shocked and we are saddened, and this is something that we are not accustomed to.
And 4 persons were shot, 2 fatally, after gunmen carried out attacks in Denham town, Kingston last night. Shortly after 8 o'clock, a man was shot dead at the intersection of Albert and Nuttall streets. He has been identified as Kevin Francis. Then, in what the police believe was a reprisal attack, gunmen went to Metcalf Street where they opened fire on 3 persons. One of them later died. The police have not yet released the identity. Last night's incidents occurred nearly a week after the House of Representatives approved a 90-day extension of the zone of special operations in Denham town. More calls are being echoed this afternoon for the crime situation in St. James to be addressed with urgency. Speaking with TVJ News yesterday, Custos Conrad Pitkin noted that since the end of the state of emergency in the parish, the rate of shootings and murders have almost doubled. He is therefore calling for swift action for the security forces and the security minister.
Something must be done immediately to stop the rise and to cauterize it and minimize it as much as possible. I think the citizens are returning to a place of fear and trepidation, and we can't afford that to happen.
He also pointed to the shooting incident involving Police Constable Sheldon Murray.
But this is something that is barbaric and should not have happened, and we need to take serious note about it.
A senior police officer is reiterating calls for more social intervention programs to empower communities and fight crime. Senior Superintendent Steve McGregor was speaking recently at a ceremony in Mandeville, Manchester. The Success Program helps communities minimize crime and violence through training, peer learning, and mentorship. SSP McGregor said such programs have a greater impact on crime than a heavy security presence.
We make the mistake to think that it is our zones of special operation, our enhanced security measures that is going to change what is happening in our country. It's not so. What that will do is to minimize what is happening, to curtail and manage crime and violence in our country. What is going to change crime and violence in our country is the empowering of our communities.
He adds that the state of emergency, for example, will only minimize crime during a particular period.
When you go into the communities as game changers, as change agents, and influence the attitudes of the people in the communities, that is how you're going to change their behavior.
Investigators have released one of 2 men who were detained in connection with the murder of 8-year-old Shante Skyers. Little Shante's body was found a week ago in Stirling Castle Heights, St. Andrew. The second man remains in custody. Last weekend, our news center reported that the brother of a man who was killed by a mob in Stirling Castle Heights on Wednesday is in protective custody. The man handed over himself to the police on Thursday, a day after his brother, Miguel Williams, was beaten and set on fire. Mr. Williams' house was also set ablaze. He was accused of having information on Shante's murder. The Independent Commission of Investigations, INDECOM, is hoping to establish another office in the northeast section of the island between Port Maria and Port Antonio. INDECOM currently has offices in Kingston, Montego Bay, and Mandeville. It has been in operation for 9 years. INDECOM's commissioner, Terence Williams, says the entity is seeking to make more positive changes.
And we'd also like to bring our investigative capacity to its full number. Parliament agreed that we should have a certain amount of investigators, and we have never had it. We're about 60 to 70% of where we should be. We would like to be 100% because the work is arduous, and we are now putting a lot of pressure on the staff to answer scenes.
In addition, he says more investigators are needed to follow up on accusations of assaults by the security forces and to reduce a backlog of cases. At the beginning of 2016, there were 787 outstanding cases, but that had been reduced to 309 in 2018. Mr. Williams commended the security forces for a reduction in police fatal shootings while reminding them to remain professional.
If you act properly, you have nothing to fear. You give your statement truthfully as to what happened, and in the end, if you have given a truthful statement, you have nothing to fear. The only time you have something to fear is if you give a false statement or you're acting improperly. And we will always endeavor to find those who are giving false statements and to find those who are acting improperly.
An 8-year-old boy is dead after an Easter beach outing in St. Elizabeth went terribly wrong. He has been identified as Raheem Warren, a student of St. Aloysius Primary School in downtown Kingston. Reports are that Raheem and his family went to Bubbling Spring Mineral Bath in St. Elizabeth yesterday. It's understood that Raheem ran into the water without the knowledge of any of the adults and later got into difficulties. An alarm was raised. He was retrieved from the water and CPR performed. Relatives say he was revived and was taken to hospital. However, he subsequently died while being treated. The Railway Market in downtown Kingston was once again destroyed by fire this morning. Vendors at the facility are expressing frustration at the frequency of the blazes. Superintendent of the Fire Brigade's Kingston and St. Andrew Division, Patrick Gooden, says the damage is extensive.
120 or thereabouts have been destroyed. We got the call sometime after 4 this morning, and several units responded. Took us approximately 45 minutes to have the fire under control.
There have been speculations among some vendors as to how the fire started. However, Superintendent Gooden says it's still too early to determine the origin.
Not much we can say because we have not been able to determine. It's an open space, and the point of origin is very expensive if we are supposed to search, and so it's really difficult for us, and not getting any information, to really make a determination as to the cause at this point in time.
The market was previously destroyed by fire in November 2017 and again in August 2018. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, has released its latest report on Jamaica's progress, equally praising and making recommendations to enhance the economic gains. The report comes as the country prepares to end a fund finance program in the next 6 months. Come September, Jamaica's precautionary standby arrangement with the IMF will end. And as the country draws closer to that date, an urging from the fund that Jamaica should stay the course with reforming the economy. And so, in its 5th review under the current program, while pointing to successes on the 2 fund arrangements since May 2013, the IMF also highlighted governance shortcomings in the public sector, which it said should be addressed immediately. Specifically, it pointed out that the Integrity Commission should be empowered. That should help to deal with corruption issues. Other issues the IMF said should be sorted out include passing regulations to solidify a transparent and competency-based process for board appointments to public bodies, migrating funds from the government's commercial bank accounts to the government's single account and closing those accounts, and reducing the number of public bodies. It said if those are done swiftly and forcefully, the transparency and accountability will be enhanced, which will in turn bolster trust in public institutions and protect public funds. Under the IMF programs, Jamaica has managed to get its debt below 100% of GDP, cut unemployment to near all-time lows, boost business confidence, and spur the economy. The fund said if those are to continue, the groundwork for a fiscal council to oversee the way forward is necessary. When Jamaica's program ends in September, the IMF will transition to a role of just giving advice with no monetary benefits attached. Since the start of the current 36-month standby arrangement, Jamaica has passed all its tests, giving it access to nearly $1.7 billion, but none of those funds has been drawn down. Herman Green, TVJ News. In the meantime, the IMF says the Bank of Jamaica should reduce its interventions in the foreign exchange market. In recent weeks, as the dollar lost value, the central bank stepped in, selling additional U.S. currency to smooth out the market jitters. Just last week, the BOJ intervened twice, selling a total of $40 million. The IMF, however, says the BOJ should limit such sales. It also hinted that further interest rate cuts could help to restore inflation to 5%. Inflation for March was 3.4%. The IMF contends that with the figure that low, the economy will not realize its full growth potential. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention says the United States is on track to surpass the record number of measles cases in a single year since the disease was declared eliminated in 2000. For the fourth week in a row, health officials have added dozens of new cases, bringing the year's total so far to 626, which is already the highest number in the past 5 years. The number of people who fell ill from the potentially deadly disease increased by 71 during the third week of April, with 22 states reporting cases. Health officials say they expect 2019's case counts to rise in coming weeks because of increased disease spread as a result of Easter and Passover gatherings. Jamaica is running out of land space for burials. The National Environment and Planning Agency, NEPA, says the country has only a quarter of the minimum designated land space remaining for burial purposes, and this is a major concern. TVJ's Prince Moore has the details.
Running out of land space to bury the dead. The National Environment and Planning Agency, NEPA, is expressing concern. Director of the Spatial Planning Division of NEPA, Leonard Francis, is encouraging families to look at alternatives to burying their relatives.
We have a situation where at present we only have 30% of the space requirements being met for cemeteries. And there have been proposals to actually expand the capacities, right. But due to factors, some of the factors in respect of the processing system, the reaction of the public, there have been issues.
NEPA's research officer Ada Manseli Akidenor says one option is cremation, and though it is cheaper than ground burial, many persons are reluctant to use this option. He adds that this is mainly due to religious reasons.
92% of Jamaicans actually prefer ground burial, while only 8% prefers to be cremated.
Correct.
Now, the reasons given is as a result of ethno-religious perspectives of the people. So it's really going to be hard because we've had some other areas like in Israel where they prefer ground burial because of what the Bible says. And Jamaica is almost in that same situation.
More families are burying their relatives on their lands. However, NEPA is discouraging families from doing so. NEPA is also suggesting other alternatives that can be used to memorialize the dead.
When you look at most options like multi-tier vertical burial system, that is used in Israel. You have a building. It's built like a structure where you actually have different compartments to bury the dead.
Family plot burial is actually sterilizing the lands because over time they become full-blown cemeteries. Because what we are seeing is that they're growing larger and larger, and more people are doing that. Now, what we need to do is that we really need to look at alternatives. Because if we continue to do that, agricultural lands will be taken up. When you are ready to share up the land, there are going to be issues.
The NEPA representatives were speaking on TVJ's Smile Jamaica program this morning. Prince Moore, TVJ News.
Television Jamaica is seeking your help in finding one of our high-definition cameras that was removed from a company vehicle last Wednesday. The vehicle was parked at the Country Farmhouse restaurant on Deanery Road in Vineyard Town, Kingston. The camera is useless to those who have it. Television Jamaica is asking that person to either drop it off at our studios at 32 Lyndhurst Road, Kingston 5, or leave it at a location to be picked up by TVJ. If you have any information about the high-definition camera, please call us at 876-926-1100. We go down to news in sports. The West Indies are expected to submit their 15-man squad for the World Cup to the ICC tomorrow before the deadline, becoming the final team to do so. New interim chairman of selectors, Jamaican Robert Haynes, along with interim head coach Floyd Reefer and the director of cricket, Jimmy Adams, have reportedly already selected the team. That announcement should come on Wednesday at a press conference in Barbados. Captain Jason Holder is set to lead the team in England and Wales, and Jamaican hard hitter Chris Gale is also expected to make the 5th World Cup squad. Meanwhile, since the change to the selection policy by new president Ricky Skerritt, the likes of Trinidadians Dwayne Bravo, Kieran Pollard and Sunil Narine are all available for the 15-man squad. Jamaica all-rounder Andre Russell, who has turned down call-ups to West Indies squad in recent months, could make the cut, especially due to his impressive performances in the Indian Premier League. Also, Jamaican batsman Marlon Samuels has been recovering from a knee injury, which has kept him out of action since December. The 38-year-old was part of the Windies team in the qualifiers last year. England, India, Australia, New Zealand, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh and Afghanistan have all named their squads for the May 30 to July 14 tournament. And that's the Midday News. I'm Herman Green. Please join us at 7 for the primetime news package. On behalf of the news, sports and production teams, good afternoon.